be our first brand new ministry. We're calling it Taste and See That the Lord is Good. And to start with, we're going to have Luann make her famous scones, which I know everybody has always wanted to know the recipe. So she'll be providing the ingredients along with showing you exactly how to make them. But along with that, like I said, this is a new ministry for the women in the church or men. And Billy's going to be posting it on the web so that everybody can see it. We plan on doing it once a month. See how all that works out. And if you'd like to volunteer to either cook, craft, or whatever it may be, we will come to your home and film you doing it. So with that being said, I hope I haven't forgotten anything. Here's Luann with her famous scones.
Hello. Okay, today's the day I'm going to teach you how to make chocolate chip scones. My most famous recipe. I've been making this for decades, and everywhere I bring them, they're just, people love them. They're like comfort food. Recently, it was about a year ago, I took some to my daughter Maggie's office and made enough for everybody in the office. And later she said that day a man came out of his office saying, I think I just ate a warm hug. So these are basically like a warm hug. And this is all it is. It's a pretty simplistic recipe. So we start with 2 cups of just regular all-purpose flour, a 1/4 cup of sugar. I'll put these in a minute so that you can see how it all goes. 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 cup of oil. I use canola oil, but you could use any kind of vegetable oil. Not an olive oil, nothing that's too strong or flavorful. 1/2 cup of milk chocolate chips, and this is kind of an important ingredient that I want to share with you. For me, you could use any chocolate chips, but I really think that these are kind of the key to my, success, is these Guittard, not Ghirardelli, and obviously not Nestle's morsels. These are Guittard chocolate chips, but they're milk chocolate chips, and they're just a little bit bigger than a regular, well, I don't know if I'm showing that well, but than a regular chocolate chip, just a little larger. And they're just wonderful chocolate, French chocolate, and you can find them at different grocery stores, not every grocery store, so you have to kind of hunt them down. Winco has them, I think maybe Albertsons and Ralph's, some of the more expensive grocery stores. And they're just a little more expensive than Nestle's, but well worth it. Although, you could use any chocolate chip or maybe a cinnamon chip, or you could be very versatile with this recipe when you finally learn it, decide to play with it a little bit. So, then after that, the last ingredient is heavy cream, which is something I kind of tweaked. When I first got this recipe, it was just milk, like 2% milk, but somehow I think I was out of milk, and I decided to try heavy cream, which I happen to have on hand, and boy, that really makes the difference. So these scones, one of the first things you're going to notice about them is they're not like regular scones that you would go to Starbucks and get. They're not really kind of very dense or heavy or kind of crunchy, dry, which those scones can be really wonderful. I love them. These are going to be a little more like biscuit. So they're going to be a little lighter and more tender. So it's a simpler recipe, not very many ingredients, but at the end, there's kind of a learning curve to how to make sure that dough is nice and wet. And that way you have very tender scones. So here we go. 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And then to that, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of sugar. And I could have measured this out in advance, but I didn't. 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and make sure that it's not baking soda, baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of just regular salt, not sea salt or kosher salt. Okay. And then I just mix it with a fork. I'm kind of a lazy and old-fashioned cook, so I don't use any kind of fancy mixers usually. Okay, that's the main thing. Now we're going to add the oil. And the oil we just add in and mix it up until we have, if any of you are familiar with baking, pea-sized little crumb. It's crumbly, just crumbly. It doesn't have to be over-mixed. In fact, really with biscuit type things, you really don't want to over-mix much. Wonderful. Now, the delicious milk chocolate chips go in. You see how this is already, by the way, this recipe is so fast, you could actually make this recipe in 20 minutes from start to finish, once you get good with this, and I'm good with it. But I know at first it's a little bit of a learning curve. Okay, last thing, very last thing, is 1 cup of heavy cream. But I have to say, that because you want this dough to be very moist and wet, I may add a tiny bit more, and that is just going to be preferential for your house, maybe how dry your house is, or maybe where you live, your altitude. So this is something you'll learn to get used to, but you don't want it to look dry or crumbly at all. So I add it until it really sticks together and makes not a super wet, runny dough, but a very easily, easy to mix dough, so that it all comes together, not in a ball, but just in a bunch. Actually, sometimes I I don't necessarily even just use cream for every step. Sometimes as I've finished up with that first cup of cream, I just add a little bit of water. That I didn't do that this time, and maybe I should have done that because that's thinner. In fact, I'm gonna do that. Follow me over here. I'm just gonna get a little bit of water from the tap, because I really think the water is so thin, it helps to thin out where we've got thicker dough. Okay, now, I don't think I mentioned this to you, but I floured this. I have this wonderful, actually Jeanette gave me this wonderful baking sheet, or baking, I don't know what's called, a silicone baking sheet kind of thing. So this is really nice. I mean, you can use any kind of a cutting board type surface or whatever. And you don't need a lot of flour, just enough so it doesn't stick. So I just take my hands and form this into sort of a ball. I'm not really mixing it too thoroughly. I just want it to all stick together. And then I'm gonna put it on the flour and shape it into a ball, because ultimately it's gonna be pressed down into a little 6-inch circle, 6 to 8 inches. See? And really just doing a lot of patting and pressing and shaping. Not that it has to be perfect. We're gonna cut this into pie shape, little triangles. There, lovely. Okay. Now, I just cut like this. This is how I do it. I go across, and then across like this, and then kind of that halfway across. One more. See how simple this is?
I have a question. Would
Yes.
you ever just double the batter to make twice as many at the same time, or would you do it
probably
individual?
You probably could. I never have. I've been making this for decades, and maybe I'm kind of like superstitious, but when I do make more than one batch, I just continue to make more batches. And I have many of these, whatever they're called, Pyrex bowls, and I just make them individually, because I feel like I really want to be careful with the dough,
Okay.
to make sure the dough is always nice and tender. So with each batch, I'm,
Because you probably want to make more than 7.
this is 8. This is actually 8.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So then they easily go onto the baking sheet. Just separate them a little bit, obviously, because they're not really going to spread out much. They're going to kind of raise up mostly, and that's the baking powder. So that's what's different about this. Those 2 teaspoons of baking powder are going to cause this to be kind of rise like a biscuit. Okay, that one kind of fell apart. And also, these things are very forgiving. You can just mold them back into shape. Although maybe that was dry because of, you know what, I'm not gonna do that one. I am gonna do 7, it's funny you said that. Okay, and then, let me just wash my hands off really quickly, because I feel like I'm just full of dough. There. Okay. The very last step before we put it in the oven is sprinkling some cinnamon sugar, which I already mixed. And I don't really know exactly how to tell you, but it's not half and half. It's more sugar than cinnamon. So if you've ever made cinnamon toast, it's maybe a few tablespoons of sugar to half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of cinnamon. So I just kind of eyeballed it till I liked the way it looked, just light brown. And then I'm just going to liberally sprinkle it all over. And first, I'm not worried about the pan. I'm just going to make sure that they're kind of covered all over. This is part of the wonderful flavor, this cinnamon and sugar on the top. This just adds extra yumminess. Even though it's easy chocolate chip. But chocolate and cinnamon go together very well. Okay, that is ready to go in the oven product. So we're gonna put this in a 400-degree oven, which is already preheated, and we're gonna set it for 10 minutes. The recipe actually says 10 to 12 minutes, but I'm pretty good with my oven setting it at 10. And so we're gonna take it out in 10 minutes and we'll see what the end product's like.
1.
Okay, we're ready to look at the finished product. I baked it for 10 minutes at 400 degrees. Now I'm gonna turn the oven off, turn off these are the things I always forget, my oven light, and I'm ready to remove them. There they are, aren't they beautiful? Very puffy. That cinnamon got a little browner, and that's part of the magic. And they'll be tender inside, so I'm just gonna set them, obviously, on a nice surface to protect it for how hot this is. And we don't normally eat them hot out of the oven. And by the way, once they cool, it would be best to put them in like a Tupperware container that's sealed, because not when they're hot, once they've cooled down, it really seals in how soft they are. And in fact, you know, once they're cooled and sealed, you can put them in the freezer for a while. I mean, I don't know how long, but I've definitely put them in for a few weeks and then remove them, thaw them, and they surprisingly are almost like fresh baked. Not hot, but it doesn't matter. We're not usually eating them hot, although I'm gonna have Billy try one that's hot. So I'll dish up. Which one do you want, Billy? You want the biggest one, the one with the most chocolate chips?
The biggest one.
The biggest one. Is that this one right here?
Okay.
Okay. All right, here we go. Do you want to just break it open? You want
No, I got it. Let me get my hand in
All
there.
right, you're going to burn your hands, but let's
Yeah.
just break it open and see. So you see how tender that looks? It really is like biscuit. And once again, you don't want to do this hot out of the oven because it really will
Okay.
fall apart. But
So I'll have a taste now.
Take a taste.
Really good.
Yeah, they are really good. These things have traveled with me to baby showers, weddings, shut-ins, Bible studies. Anytime a friend, wants a pick-me-up, these scones are more welcome to their house than I am. So I think that you should really give this a try. And then remember what we're called. It's taste and see. But it's taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed are those that put their trust in Him. I hope you have a beautiful day.
Amen. Please share this video with your friends, because remember, it's not just about learning how to make scones, but it goes deeper than that. It's to share our faith, our love for Christ, and share that with other women. So thank you for watching, and share the video.